Hey guys, this is Nick Christopher from Mob Tales. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. Leave comments if you like. Uh, Today we got a interesting guest from the Chicago area, Nick Siefert, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, hopefully. Um, I know Nick and Joe, his brother. They went through a very traumatic experience in Chicago, and their father, Danny, was indirectly connected to some of the Chicago outfit, and he unfortunately had a an incident that really hurt the whole family. And Nick and Joe are his sons, who were directly, of course, affected them through their life. So I definitely like to welcome Nick into the show.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you very much.
no, thank you. I just also want to mention really quick that Nick and Joe also have a book out. It's called Deadly Associates, which I read, which is awesome. Really great book. You guys should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
As I'm sure Nick will talk about later on. Yeah, Nick, thank you for coming to the show. I just wanted to give people a little bit of a background. And well, the kind of questions I wanted to ask, first off, is I know growing up, with your dad and everything and the business he was in, a lot of the guys that were around your dad, you called them all uncle, if I'm
Correct.
correct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Joe Lombardo in specific.
Right.
Now, I mean, you're older than Joe, correct? I mean, yeah, am I right?
Yeah. I'm 8 years older than him.
Oh, it's a big difference. Okay. I think you had a little bit more um, experience, meaning in-person experience,
Correct. Yeah.
with those guys.
Right.
Now, as a young boy, what was your perception of them at that time?
Well, they were, like family members. When I was younger, I did not really, there wasn't, so to speak, a lot of organized crime involvement, so to speak. I didn't see, I saw typical shit like, card games, stuff like that, goofing around. But, I didn't see any criminal activity, um, so to speak, at the factories because I would go to the factory and stuff like with these guys. Phil Aldericio was there and Joe Lombardo. And, and just hang around. And they were just like family. They were, like family uncles.
Right. So, I mean, that's basically, so in other words, there was no indication that to you at that time that they were at all criminally involved with anything.
Uh, Not in the beginning.
Right.
Towards the end, I started to see different things. Some violence and stuff like that. Um, uh, there was a time where we went to a restaurant. Joe Lombardo took me on a lunch run with him, and he went to this restaurant, and the guy owed him money, and the guy wasn't going to pay him, and it got heated. And then it turned out that 3 weeks later, the place burnt down.
Wow.
Yeah. Then they rebuilt, and then Joe Lombardo again went there, talked to the guy, and the guy refused to pay, even after he, got insurance money and everything else, I'm sure. And then they burnt it down again.
You serious? Really?
Oh yeah.
That's crazy. Okay. Um, you were how old at that time?
Uh, at that time, I was probably about 9.
And Joe took you on a coffee run. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, technically, you kind of trusted him, I guess, at that time.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was like part of the family. My father trusted him. And actually, when my parents would go out places, um, different family functions and stuff, and they needed somebody to watch the kids, he would always take me. and we would, go to the circus or go to a movie or go to a baseball game or something like that.
Oh wow. Okay. So Joe was the um I guess only more how do you say the closer of all the other characters that are running around there. So from what I understand, Joe was the closer one of them out of all of them.
Yeah, yeah. We would go to Phil Aldericio's house a few times, but Joe Lombardo was a little bit closer to the family, I think, uh, than Phil was.
Okay. Um, Now, because I'm trying to understand the people who never existed, never experienced this type of lifestyle, so to speak. Who don't know. Like, it's a
You're
when
right.
you were in the company of Joe or Phil with your dad, did um, I'm guessing Joe and Phil treated your father very respectfully. I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right.
Phil Aldericio and my dad were quite close, and treated him. They were like almost like father and son. My dad looked up to him, and then my dad got along very good with Dominic Aldericio, who's Phil Aldericio's son at that time, and they were close knit.
So
And
we're
at that
speaking.
time, Phil
Uh-huh.
Aldericio was really the boss. I mean, Arcardo, he was kind of like, this is when Arcardo stepped away,
Right.
as he did many times, and then Aldericio like took over the reins during that period.
Right. So we're speaking of Milwaukee Phil.
Right.
Correct. Okay. No, just for people who may not know. That's what I
Sure.
was
Yeah.
thinking. Um, from what I understand, so when the time when the unfortunate incident happened with your dad in 1974,
Right.
um, so you were like in your early teens at this time, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And 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 Joe was, I guess, a lot younger. He was like what, 9, I think.
No, no. During that time, I was just turned 13, and my brother was like 4 years old.
Oh, he was much younger. Okay.
Yeah, much
Um,
younger.
so you and your mom, Emma, I think if I remember correctly, well, after that whole incident, um, you guys still didn't leave the Chicago area. You still stuck around.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Was
Yeah,
there any
definitely.
where you got? I mean, was there any kind of worry or fear at all, or I guess not.
Well, you develop habits. You develop habits. You're always watching over your back. You're always watching everything anyway. Your environment. That's how we grew up. But um, we did not leave the Chicago area. We didn't go into any kind of, the government didn't WITSEC us or anything like that. We stayed in Chicago actually until I got ready to leave and move to Florida, which I
Right.
was like 21, 22.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. Well, the ironic thing is, well, not ironic, but interesting thing is, when you went to Florida, you actually opened a gun shop. If,
No, no, I didn't actually open a gun shop. I'm a wholesaler.
so you sell them. You
Yeah,
sell them.
I sell the
Right.
guns to the gun shops.
Oh, okay. I got it mixed
Yeah,
up. All right, got it.
yeah. I was
Um,
working in a gun shop, you know, when I was a kid, after this murder happened with my father. I was working at a place called Gun World in Bensonville on Irving Park Road. And I worked there until I moved to Florida. And then once I moved to Florida, I made some contacts and everything else and ended up getting into the wholesale business.
oh, okay. Well, being that the case, was there a unconscious ulterior motive to get involved with, wholesale guns, whatever, if you know what I mean? Was there any unconscious thought of revenge and to get back for the guys that hurt your father?
Well, that wasn't the motivator. I've been in guns my whole life. Our family, my father was heavily into firearms and everything else. That really wasn't the motivator. I just always liked guns, and and was good at it. And I did everything in the gun business. As far as reloading, selling firearms, working the ranges and everything.
Well, at a young age, like 12, 13 years old, right before whatever happened with your dad, were you ever, were you, did you ever feel like, let's say Joe or Phil or anything, as you were getting older, did they ever like try to like almost groom you at all, or, well, did they ever approach you like that?
Did whoever approach me
Well,
like
Phil
that?
or Joe,
Um,
like, did they ever, as you were getting older, like turning 13, you know,
yeah.
did they ever approach you to like kind of groom you for that lifestyle at all?
Well, before the fallout, you know, um, he would spend a lot of time with me. I don't know if I would say that he was grooming me,
Mm-hmm.
but I spent time with him and stuff like that. But
Right,
after, um, I would say probably about when I was about 11, the relationship became strained between my dad and Joe Lombardo. So we had very little contact at all.
okay. Well, maybe you can explain this too. I mean, I know your dad was a very tough guy. There was no pushover, and
Yeah.
he was a tough guy. He was a hard worker, and like for people who they may obviously not know unless they read the book, um, what really caused the rift between the two?
I'm sorry. What was that?
But what really caused the rift between Danny and Joe and Phil per se?
Well, they got the FBI was doing an investigation on the Teamsters Union, and they were getting loans from the Teamsters Union, Alan Dorfman.
Right,
Okay, and they were funneling the money through the company so that these guys could get money from the loan, and then some of the portions of the money they would funnel into Las Vegas.
right. But so, in other words, they were using your dad's factory as sort of like a laundering kind of thing.
Right, exactly, a cash register.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So yeah,
And
that's what they were doing. They were getting loans, from Alan Dorfman, and then the proceeds obviously were going to everybody. Erwin Weiner, Dorfman would get a kickback of every loan that he made, and then obviously Tony Spilotro, Erwin Weiner, and Joe Lombardo would get a lot of the money, and then my dad got some of it, but not as much as he thought because of the business. And he was trying to make it a legitimate business, and these guys were just trying to use it as a front, so to speak.
right. Um, so I guess so. The reason being is that I guess the FBI tried to approach your dad to get more information, and they were worried that he might flip or something.
Well, exactly. Yeah, the FBI. My father and I went out to breakfast before we went to work, and my the FBI approached us in a restaurant, and they were threatening my dad with jail time and everything else.
Oh, so I guess so. The how did so that being the case, I'm interested to know how did anybody else know that the FBI even approached your father? I guess somebody dropped a dime or something.
Well, there was already the FBI already had a government informant by the name of Harold Lurie. Okay, and Harold Lurie dropped names of everybody. So, and then once the FBI approached my father was very upfront, and because he was a tough guy, so he went back to Joe Lombardo and say, "Hey, listen, we're going to be getting some pressure here from the feds." Because by this time the feds were already sitting out in front of the factory every day taking pictures and everything. So my dad would converse with Joe Lombardo all the time about, hey, listen, the feds are going to pull an indictment. They're investigating, and they know about the whole scheme. Now, nobody knew that Harold Lurie was the one that flipped. Harold Lurie came under Tony Spilatro's flag and worked in another company called Gaylor Products. And the whole time that during the Spilatro thing, when Spilatro worked at Gaylor Products, he didn't even know Harold Lurie was a government informant.
And that was in,
And then,
and that was in Vegas, right? That place?
yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so in reality, it's kind of Tony's fault, really, if you think about it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because he allowed informants to work with him. You know, that's a no-no, pretty much.
Right.
You would never know, but he should have smelled it out prior.
Right.
Now, if I'm correct, there was this. You were approached one time by after the fact, after your father passed. You know, after they killed him and everything, the whole thing with the during the trial, I think, if I'm correct, that you were approached one time because you were snooping around trying to get information, more information to.
Well, yeah, that was long before the trial. That was, I started, investigating this whole thing and going over all these people and everything else. And that was when I was working at the gun shop. A guy came and gave me some information. He wasn't involved in the murder, but he was letting me know what it was about, what happened, and who was involved.
Oh no, I meant different. Yes, but I meant when you were approached by at gunpoint, and from what I heard, that you were approached at gunpoint at one time, and the FBI was watching the whole thing.
Oh yeah, well that was much later. That was just before the Family Secrets trial. I went into a restaurant
Right.
that Joe Lombardo was supposedly going into, and of course, which is what I expected, everybody would say that he doesn't come around here no more. He's not here, this and that. So then I left, and then a couple guys followed me out and wanted to obviously try to find out information and why I was there and everything, and why I was asking for Lombardo, which they already knew who I was.
Right, but from what I understood, you stood up to them. You didn't show any fear.
No. Well, because by that time, I was an arms dealer, and what had happened was they pulled a gun out on me, and
right.
I'm very fast, so I carry a Kimber 45, and I pulled that out and actually chambered it in a flash, and they were set back by that. And I told them, I said, listen, baby, I came 2,000 miles to die. You don't scare me, And we had the confrontation. They put their gun away, and then they walked away. And then I turned around and walked away. And then that's when the FBI dropped the net and escorted me to their car. And then, they were threatening me with, all kinds of, carrying a firearm in the city and all this other stuff. And I told him, I said flat out, I said at the time, the FBI guy was Chris Williams. And I said to him, I said, well, I can carry a gun anywhere. It doesn't matter. I'm an arms dealer. And he turned around and he called his boss. And his boss said, I got 3 words for you. Let him go. And they did.
Interesting. But with the FBI, I think was more upset, I think, because they felt you were.
Well, yeah, they were always upset with me because, that was just one incident. I was constantly, a thorn in their side,
Because they felt you were interfering with their own investigation or something like that. If I'm
Well,
correct.
but you got to understand, yeah, that's exactly correct. But for 30 years, there was no investigating. I was the only one investigating. The FBI didn't do nothing. The police departments, neighboring, whether it was Elk Grove or Elmwood Park or, any of the other departments, Schiller Park, nobody was doing anything about it for 30 some years.
Wow, that's crazy. So would you?
It was a cold case. It was a cold case because of the mob's political corruption and their political backing. They were able to avoid any kind of investigation. If DOJ was, trying to go after him for whatever. I mean, Joe Lombardo got pinched on other stuff, like the strawman case, the, Operation Pendorf and all that other stuff, but it really had nothing to do with my father's murder.
Right.
And I didn't, for my brother and I for 30 years didn't feel that they were even investigating.
Wow, that's crazy. So from what I understand, during later on after the fact, so I think during the family secrets trial that you mentioned earlier,
Right.
was it, if I'm correct, did Frank Calabrese Jr. Um, he was able to help you guys in some way, correct?
Well, actually, it was Junior, Frank Calabrese Jr. that started this whole family secrets investigating,
Right.
and he put his uncle involved, which his uncle was a hitman, Nick
Nick, yeah.
Calabrese,
Right.
and Nick Calabrese killed a guy by the name of John Ficarata, and John Ficarata was one of the guys that was there that day and killed my father. So that's what opened up the family secrets case, was because they
Right.
were uh, going after Nick Calabrese, who obviously left the bloody glove, left some evidence at his crime scene when he killed John
Yeah, but
Ficarata.
his glove or something. I think it
Right.
was his glove. Yeah.
Correct.
So that case was able to help open up yours for your dad, correct? It helped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what led to the family secrets trial. And not just my father, but obviously the
Others, yeah,
Spilotro
I'm sure.
murders.
Mm.
Yeah, the Spilotro murders, Ortiz murders, and the list goes on. There were 14 murders that they investigated.
Wow. Um, I mean, since that whole, obviously, ever since then, you, I think your brother and you were able to this book together, Deadly Associates, which kind of covers the whole story, basically. You know how your dad started and so forth and so on. Um,
Correct.
how the so the what have you guys branched out with anything else with the book? In other words, anything film wise, any other media?
Well, we did a documentary, a 2 hour documentary on Reels, and it's on Reels, and then it's on Tubi, it's on Amazon Prime, and it's called Deadly Associates as well.
Right, I think I
And
saw that.
it's actually a 2 hour documentary.
Yes. Okay. Um, now, since then, what is? I mean, I know. What is your take on Chicago now? Ever since that, I mean, the Chicago underworld, whatever per se, which I don't think is anywhere near as powerful as it was when your dad was around. But what is your take on that currently?
Well, I think that there's, still people that are there and operating, but obviously they're not as, it's not what it used to be, like in the 70s. And when I say what it's not what it's used to be, their tactics are still the same, as far as, trying to embezzle and bookmaking and everything else. But what I'm saying, what it's not what it used to be as far as them being able to have the political connections, um, and make things go away, such as, uh, murders or, different trials, embezzling trials or gambling trials or what have you. The judges are a little bit less corrupted, um, you know, and a
Right,
lot of the politicians are a lot less corrupted today than they used to
right,
be in the 70s.
gotcha. But like you said, they're still there, they're still around, but they're just like
Yeah,
they're
and that's actually what took, the corruption end of it, which a lot of people don't really want to talk about, but the corruption end of it is what kept my father's murder a cold case for 40 years. Is because no one was going after these guys, and every time somebody did try to shake the bird cage, so to speak,
yeah,
and go after these guys, that somebody would give him a phone call and say, hey, leave him alone.
Right. There was one individual that was in Chicago. I'm not sure if you might know him. He recently passed on, who was a big advocate of that, of battling corruption. Frank Coconati.
Yeah, he's on our documentary.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, Frankie was in our documentary.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah. 'Cause I know he passed away very recently.
Yeah, like 2 months ago.
Yeah, something like that. Yes. Yeah, I knew Frank. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He was a great
Yes,
guy.
he was a big advocate for that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
for corruption and everything else. He fought really hard. I know that. Well, so currently, right now, you guys are still pushing the book, obviously, and the
yes,
documentary.
right,
So people can so people who may be interested can find the documentary on, like you said, Amazon, Tubi, and so forth.
correct. Yeah,
And the book obviously is on Amazon and other platforms.
right, exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, Nick, thank you very much for coming on and sharing this
Great.
with us. Very interesting. Um, I must admit to anybody who's watching, the book is great. You guys got to check it out.
Yeah,
Um,
it wasn't a glamorous lifestyle by no means. It was a struggle. It was an uphill battle. From the very beginning.
right. I just feel bad. I know for your mom. I know reliving it during the family secrets trial. I'm sure was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your mom is still around, right? Or
Yes. Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
God bless. That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Joe, Nick, thank you very much for coming on. I wish Joe was could have been available too, but that's all good.
Yeah.
And I wish you guys both a lot of luck. And if anybody wants to check out his book, Deadly Associates, on Amazon, and the show, Tubi and Hulu, I think Hulu, I think maybe too. Um, Deadly Associates, please guys check it out.
Thank you very much.
Nick,
It's
thank you
been a
much.
pleasure coming on.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weather. I see it's warm over there.
Oh yeah, it's hot in Florida.
That's right. You're in Florida. That's right. I forgot. I'm
Yeah.
thinking Chicago for some reason.
Yeah. No, no, no. I'm in Florida now.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, enjoy, my man.
All righty.
Thank you,
Thank
Nick.
you. All right.
Thanks, guys, for tuning on to Mob Tales. We just had a great guest, Nick Siefert. Please check out his book, Deadly Associates. And please leave, share, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we'll definitely check you out next time. Thank you.